What's going on, family?
Praises, cheers, cheers, praises. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you clear. I can see you clear. I can hear you clear. It's high definition.
Beautiful, beautiful, lovely.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Brother Rave, what's going on today? What's happening with you?
Yeah, it's just been a morning full of meditation. Naked out here on the top of a mountain.
On top of a mountain? What
Yeah,
mountain? What mountain you on?
well, I'm in Mount Canocti in California.
Okay.
Yeah,
Kanaktai.
yeah, Mother Mountain. In California, it's in Lake County in Kelseyville. It's really
Okay.
out. It's really out in the cut. Uh, really have a lot of room out here to be as naked as I want. And so, yeah, just been taking advantage of that ever since I got back to the mainland from Hawaii.
For sure, for sure. And when was it that you just got back from Hawaii?
Just 2 days ago.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. How was your trip?
I mean, I was in Hawaii for 3 months.
Okay.
It was throughout the whole lychee season. Lychee season, like, usually is only like a month and a half, but this time it was 3 months. So that kind of like aligned for me to be there that whole 3 month. And then my brother here was like, "Yo, I'm going to Africa. You want to come house sit my house for a little bit?" And I was like, "Sure." You know what I mean? Like keep the waters flowing. And yeah, before it gets cold here, I'll probably be heading back to Hawaii or somewhere tropical as well, because
Okay.
we live outside with this lifestyle nowadays. So we try to keep it to where it's not too many fluctuations of weather. Even though here when that sun go down here up in the mountain, it just like 20 degrees in like 5 minutes. It's
Hmm.
it's pretty epic.
Indeed, indeed. So is Hawaii more of like home base now?
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking to set up some long-term things there for uh all of the pranic people around the world and those that are learning about the pranic path and everybody else as well that that just want any little insight, any little seed. Looking to see that be more of a ease for a lot of people rather than just be a tourist site, but a ease for a lot of more people to actually have as their home base. And just learning the ropes of the nature out there is like it's such a humbling thing every single day just to like learn what the Aina or the powers of the land there and the forces there have to teach and offer and make it back into its simplest format, with right reasoning and uh, look at it from not the five senses, but look at it from its etheric sense.
Right, right. Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Mahalo, family. That's
Yeah.
awesome, man. I've never been to Hawaii yet. It's definitely on my list. So that would be an amazing trip, just to have a place, just to have a base of, inspiration, a place of relaxation and a place of high vibration for, like you said, people on this path. That's awesome that you're cultivating that. And
Yeah.
what inspired, the initial move to Hawaii? What was the initial genesis or the idea that said, you know what, I gotta get to Hawaii. I gotta get to the island.
Wow. Yeah. So I mean, like, Maui, like 6 years ago, were just calling me. I had some friends out there that weren't like really friends. They were just like Instagram friends, and I was able to see the colors. The colors itself was enough for me that resonated with me. That was like, wow, I gotta go. Now, granted, back in like high school and middle school, people didn't know what I actually was. Like, they was like, you kind of dress like you're like from the islands a little bit. And I would by that at that time I was just going by black and white and such. Um, but like I was wearing flip flops in the hood, Hollister shorts and stuff like that in the hood and such. And so like it was a natural thing for me personally, without even thought of any of the spiritual natures too much, just to like, you know, act like I'm on a beach,
Mm.
nowhere, no matter where I'm at. And so boom, I've already went to Mexico, Honduras, Costa Rica, Belize, Guatemala, and then I find myself in California and I'm seeing all these colors from Hawaii just off my social media and such.
Mm.
And so one time I knew I was going one of these winters. I was like, I can't do a whole winter. in California. I can do like a couple months, but not a whole winter. And so I booked my ticket like 2 weeks in advance, and I had no clue what I was gonna do out there. Like no plans of where to go, first time. So I just booked it to Maui,
Mhm.
and then I went to Maui. You know, just based off the faith, because I've done this before. We went to Mexico and Central America, just based off the faith that I'll figure it out when I get there. And so that's already been like a training for me. So boom, when I go to Maui, I'm there for like a day. I got my hammock,
Mhm.
and that's all I got. Pretty much my hammock. That's all I got
Mhm.
on Maui. And then 2 days later, I'm just drinking coconuts at that time. Hammock and coconut at the beach. Like, hey, you know what I mean? Like, I'm blessed.
Yeah,
Just getting the city vibes off me for a little
yeah.
bit. And then 2 days later, a brother hits me up that I was talking to like 4 months ago. Haven't talked to him since. And was like, yo, when do you ever plan on coming out? And then I was like, wow, I'm actually here right now. I just got here 2 days ago. And then he's like, well, what city are you at? I'm like, tell him what city I'm in. And then he's like, wow, I'm actually passing through there today just to pick up some parts. You want to come back to the crib with me?
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, well, that's easy as that. And so, boom, he has his homestead. He shows me the ropes. He's been there for like a decade without like ever trying to use money. He's like been on this like moneyless path for like 10 years and just being based in like bartering and communications and such. He used to do a lot of ayahuasca and do ceremonies with a lot of people. So he has like a whole bunch of his age urine that he's never used before, and he doesn't even know about age urine therapy at all. And so it's just like this whole alignment that's happening super easy. And then I'm learning the vortex mathematics as I'm there in person. And so boom, I get that experience for a couple months there that first time,
Mhm.
and then it's always pulling me back. I leave because of whatever ambitious nature I might have, but then I'm always getting pulled back to like, well, you still have to like learn the depths of relaxation
Mhm.
deeper and deeper. So might as well, go to where it's like encouraged for that.
Right.
And so even like this time around, um, the relaxation has like these last 3 months, the
Mhm.
relaxation has been a whole different journey because I was able to wear um, a shindy or a scarf wrap around my waist without wearing shorts for almost the whole three
Wow.
months. Like I have a lot of different scarves and such that are very like beautiful and such. And this time around, I was able to experiment with, okay, like, what if I only wore this, no
Mhm.
shorts, no shirt, no shoes, just this shindi. Shindi is the Egyptian term for wearing the scarf around your
Got
waist.
you.
Mhm. What if I just wore this time around, and yeah, pretty much I had no resistance at
Right.
all to me just pretty much being naked with a scarf around my waist, and that type of relaxation was so welcomed and honored that the potential and the prophecies of the Hawaiian Islands, because I've this time around I was on Big Island, which is the main biggest
Mhm.
island. Then there's Maui, Oahu, and Kauai.
Mhm.
Um, each of them have their own like resonance and chakra energy. Um, and so there's so much potential, but Big Island has the prophecy that in by 2050 it will be the leading headquarters for the new Earth civilization here on Earth.
Whoa.
It has that prophecy, and so I'm one of the only people that have actually done the studies that all the ancient occults talks were talking about this prophecy back in like the 1800s.
Mhm.
Uh, and so I tell people about it whenever we're like in the hot ponds or whenever we're at the black sand beaches or green sand beaches or ever at the drum circles and such. I'm telling people about this prophecy because people are wondering like, why is the magic here like this? Like, what is the bigger picture of all
Right.
this? And just
Right.
be able to bring people the bigger picture of like, yeah, like there's levels of education that is spurting from the air itself at
Absolutely.
all times that we can choose to digest,
Yeah.
digest that education, and then that education leads to different levels of cultivation or culture. Yeah.
Mm, absolutely. Man, that is awesome, brother. That is awesome that, I love that you not only you enjoy that cultivation, but you enjoy the researching information, like just gathering and just fulfilling the prophecy. You know,
Yeah.
you're out there fulfilling the prophecy. Like, you're like, I know the prophecy. Not everybody else knows. You're like, you know, Morpheus in the Matrix. I remember there was like a commander Locke, or some commander that was talking to Morpheus in
Mhm.
Zion. He said, damn it, Morpheus. Damn it. You know, like, not everyone believes what you believe. And
Yeah.
Morpheus, I remember Morpheus said this cold quote. It was so cold. He was like, my beliefs do not require them to. You know,
Yep.
like what I believe,
Walks
it doesn't require them to
away.
believe what I believe. Like, I know the prophecy, I know the one, I already know it is written. You know,
Yeah.
it is written. I know it's gonna happen, and I have that assurance. I have that confidence. I have that thing that erases my worry, that lets go of my fears.
Hmm.
So when you were talking about vortex mathematics, you mentioned vortex mathematics. I haven't really heard too much about this. What is this?
Vortex mathematics is pretty much a mixture of like being able to harness different levels of the ether,
Mm,
or the ether is like influencing a specific region or a person's hologram.
okay.
And so the vortex mathematics can be as simple as the house that you live in. It could be as simple as taking your shoes off and putting your feet on the ground and allowing your torus field to either resonate in a three ether sense, a six ether sense, or a nine ether sense. And that nine ether sense is that super divine mind, super divine order. And the six ether is like you're tapping into certain great things of nature, but it's kind of like the Tao. It's there's the nature and then there's a super nature, and then you have the three ether, which is moving closer to death instead of culture. And so whenever you're tapping into any type of vortex, which there's many vortexes and stargates that are aligned to the dragon lines on earth,
Mhm,
whenever you're tapping into any vortex, you have the ability to try to access a bigger aura field
mhm,
even easier. So you can do it anywhere, on earth. It's just certain places are structured for the vortex energy, the toroidal field energy to become bigger.
okay.
And that's kind of like one of the main things of abundance
Mm,
is that uh, I would say the realm that we live in being mainly based in the cycle of three ether right now.
mm,
We see that as the not even a type one civilization based type of society where it's not even type one yet, but we're working to get towards type one. That's mainly three ether because our toroidal fields, our minds are kind of only this big. It only moves 3 feet off of our bodies
mm,
as a collective, or the ones that are identified with the collective and
okay.
such. The ones that are identified with not being a multidimensional being.
Okay.
And the ones that have like broken that spell to be a multidimensional being, they start moving towards having a bigger aura field, and they start moving towards getting that spell that just the physical body is the main part of the body, when in actuality, the physical body is only 1/10 of the body.
Mm,
90% of the actual body is actually in the
mm,
aura field.
mm,
And so whenever we're talking vortex mathematics, we kind of have to know those basics
mhm,
of, math is not all about multiplication and subtraction and such. It's more about just understanding the powers of one through nine and how they resonate, because nine is actually the highest number and one is actually, or zero is actually the lowest number and such. And it's all in one big circle. So it's all really unified.
mhm,
And so whenever we're talking about mathematics, we're not talking about mathematics from a sense of trying to constantly increase or decrease. It's more about mathematics that's more based in Mayat, meaning that no matter what expression anything might be a part of or might express itself as,
mhm,
it's still resonating to just being whole at all times. And so trying to increase our aura field and our knowledge of our aura field to that non-ether ability, um, just really gives us an abundance of like fun. In actuality, it's a lot of fun to participate in, because like really we have that abundance of mind, divine mind, that we're always able to tap into and see how much every single breath can be full of mystery, not in the sense of like there's no order, but mystery in the sense of like this might be the last breath. I might be on a different planet next breath. it
Mm.
might be a whole different planet, a different galaxy, and a different universe, and a different density next breath. And if we can live by that with order that, momentum says that it's probably not going to happen, but there is that possibility because I do know that I am a multidimensional being. I
Mm.
have this aura field that does have different densities around the aura field that I as a consciousness awareness um, projector perceiver is tapped into. I can just live with that amount of fun and that amount of
Yeah.
wholeness in every single
Yeah.
breath.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And when you talk about just that amount of fun, because it does sound like you just genuinely you're in joy, you're in bliss, like you're in these states where you're just having fun playing, in this reality. Like what is the knowledge of the nine ether, the knowledge of like all these different dimensions, the knowledge of all this exploration? What does it allow you to do that you find fulfilling and is so fun for you in this life?
Uh, I would say the main thing is like that city power of not complaining.
Okay.
Knowing that like all the city powers really comes from this sense of
Mm,
contentment that like each thought already like there is no thought that has necessarily a problem. The thought necessarily has no rush to it. That like rush is like the biggest complaint for most people.
mm,
That there's a sense of like there's a pressure, a root pressure that's putting a time limit on when we have to get things done for this specific identity reason.
mhm,
And without that rush and that pressure, we have the ability to be multidimensional at all times. And so if we're multidimensional, there's no complaint in this reality, in the third dimensional reality, because we know this is only a fraction of
right.
us, and from that fraction we know that it's been a lot of distortions to even create this five sense reality, but we also know that we've came from such divine planes and divine realms, not before but like as a part of this divine reality, so we can see the perfection in all of even the five senses.
Mhm,
And so from that sense, I mean, undiscriminating virtue is like it's not even of the self and other at that point. It's more of the dimensions.
okay.
You know what I mean? It's of like the possibilities, like to be able to remind all things of all possibilities. Even like this leaf right here, like to remind this leaf that it has a DNA that might only be like a one strand or a two strand DNA, but it has the potential to be a 48 strand DNA. Or it is. You're just not expressing that right now. The DNA structure, it just isn't expressing that right now.
Right, right. I love these breakdowns, it's very detailed. I love like the structure of the breakdowns, like how multi-layered it is, but the way that you just bring it all into like a cohesive pattern to just make it easily digestible and understood, and just like listening to you talk, Rave, like about, the nine ether, about even not complaining, it reminds me of something you put up. You talked about how spirituality and someone who feels that they're spiritual hasn't really reached that spiritual level yet if they haven't mastered their emotional maturity.
Right.
So could you talk about like mastering emotional maturity? Like how did that impact you, or where did that take you when you were able to gain more mastery of that?
Right. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, emotional maturity has kind of always been like a theme for me. Like I really look at my whole reality as initiations from like the place I was
Mhm,
born to the middle school I went to me being an athlete, to the coaches I had. All
mhm,
things were an initiation for this time right now. And so I did grow up on a military base
mhm,
growing up. And so there was a certain level of like, I had jarheads around me that allowed me to see that divine masculine
mhm,
within them, even though they might have like not portrayed it for most of their reality. But when they was in the gym or when they were, like commanding others, there was a certain sense of like honoring uh, that masculinity inside of themselves. And so that allowed me to just like have a sense of it growing up and such, and, being an athlete and being disciplined. And then it started to dawn on me when I was awakening, which is a great story as well,
mhm,
um, that the three ether is based in moon psychology, and then the nine ether is based in sun psychology, and then The sixth ether is based in moon and sun psychology. But when we get to the sun, which is like the star and the sun,
Mm,
which connects us to the darkness and the cosmos, uh, that psychology is based in that divine order, and then the moon psychology is based in emotions,
mm,
and those emotions are illogical. They take over. They take over our logical way of
mm,
reasoning. See, reasoning, sound right reasoning is like most important thing, because if you can't reason, then you're all automatically like losing power. You're losing that nine ether power at all times, in that nine ether mind at all time if you can't reason.
mm,
And so, yeah, like a lot of people might have a lot of spiritual buzzwords that they can utilize to feel a certain type of identity. At the same time, it really just is in the actual act of life. You know how like the Taoists say, I have nothing to teach, just stick around, just hang around, and you'll see how I tie my shoe, to
mm.
see how, I do things without
Right.
emotion. Because like with the emotion is pretty much the fluctuation. So most people don't know that emotion is actually the fluctuation of our aura field expanding and contracting.
Mm,
It's not necessarily like this. It does play its part in our actual body of being chemicals and such that are formulating and
mm,
such that brings us some certain emotions. But those chemicals are actually supposed to be hitting our glands and our organs, and they're supposed to make harmony, not necessarily like negative emotions and such that certain people resonate with.
mm,
But what happens is 50% of the people on earth are emotionally, uh, their authority in life should be based in looking at their emotional field
mm,
fluctuating in and out. And then the other 50% of people should look at their emotional field being still. And
mm.
so whenever they're making decisions in life, or just allowing something to respond to come to them in life so that they can make decisions in life, then it should be based in that emotional maturity in actuality. Like that's pretty much like there's this one theory or such, is that it's not really a theory. We definitely are AI or OI, organic intelligence, that makes its way into artificial intelligence, but it's still all from the same source.
Mm.
We are very much a type of intelligence that is experiencing itself with emotions this time. It's almost like just someone throwing water on a keyboard and expecting it to always function the right way. You know
Mm,
what I mean? Those emotional fluctuations kind of just stir us in um, a pattern that doesn't remind us of that abundance of energy.
mm,
And so if you haven't kind of tapped into the energy realm first, then what you're still tapped into is that three ether emotional realm.
mm.
And so it's just one of those things of like spirituality cannot really start until you master emotionality first, because you have to have like to study spirits is like to study the different personalities of the breath and such. But if
Okay.
you've never like cleared up the laboratory to actually see what is on the table so that you can actually see what's going on, and you've always just had it really messy and just
Yeah.
unorganized, you'll never actually get to actually studying the spirits and spirituality, or spirit reality or spiritology, because or the depths of the dimensions through the breath, because you've never been able just to really clean it all up, make
Mm.
it really clean and clear so that you can have a nice space to actually study with.
Okay. Okay. So it's a super crucial component. It really sounds like it cannot be looked over.
Mm-mm.
Like you have to have that
Uh-huh.
step, to get to the next step. And earlier you were talking about abundance, and namely the gentleman that you met in Hawaii, where he was living moneyless. You said he was living without money for a time, or
Yeah,
he
like
went away.
he'll utilize money only if it's like other people's money,
Okay.
and he'll like try to only make transactions with people
Hmm.
not based in money
Okay.
for like years. So that makes his connection to people, his communication to people, up to par.
Right, right. So when it came to abundance, or these concepts that we talk about when it comes to what is wealth, what is abundance, what is prosperity, what is opulence, what is money? You know, like what has your concept of these words, how has it evolved over the years? Like how would you define it?
Yeah, uh, definitely it comes to a sense of it comes to a sense of inner journey for sure. That one has to stop looking outside of themselves for the abundance, stop looking outside of themselves, stop looking at the five senses for
Mm,
any of those things. You know, as the Taoists say, the five senses are the five
mm,
thieves. Um, so if we're talking about abundance and money, you always getting it taken from you, from the five thieves or the five senses. That's
mm,
one of the main things that is like the starting point. And then you get to see that all money, currency, prosperity, and abundance is a sense of, I would say, neuromelanin. It's a sense of neurogenesis and neuroplasticity in
mm,
actuality before everything else. Because without that, those currencies that are actually inside of your vessel and in the waves in your core field, if those aren't prosperous and abundant
mm,
first, then everything that you do, like they say, like if you don't have health and wealth, I mean, if you don't have health, then no matter what financial success you gain, you can't ever enjoy it. So it's the same thing with prosperity in all ways. Even if you're bartering with people,
mm,
you can be bartering and have a whole bunch of resources, but if you don't have the actual neuroplasticity to enjoy it and actually see the cosmic connection of all dimensions that it comes with, then it's one of those things that you don't get to enjoy as much.
right.
And so, like, it's dimensionalities inside of what we call money and prosperity and bartering and resources that we get to tap into more than anything else. And uh, there's like people don't like as people in the spiritual community don't really like hierarchy and such, and but in actuality, like the hierarchy is more of like a synarchy,
Mm,
and it's like we're all a part of the hierarchy in actuality, as long as we lose that spell of identifying ourselves with just a terrestrial being.
mm,
uh we actually get to all experience the hierarchies of ourselves and the
mm,
synarchy of ourselves. And so, like, we get to actually experience a realm where not too many people are talking about. Like, I think the only person that I've seen online is our good brother Elatom say, like, you don't need no
right.
money, you don't need no house, you don't need no car, you don't need no clothes, you don't need no this or no that. And like, I live by that. I live in a sense of like that's the only goal for me as far as on the five senses realm
Okay.
is
Okay.
being able to live, like, know that no matter what, that's not a need.
Mm,
And molding my mind for that, molding my abundance of mind for that. Because in actuality, you know, us as God, we wouldn't create a reality that was hard in actuality for ourselves. And so on this earth, there's already plenty of
mm,
structures that if it never ability, I mean, if every time it ever is gonna rain or hail or storm, and we didn't pick up on it like days before, weeks before, we would actually have plenty of places to go under
mm,
and hang out with. We already know that um, like 10 to 20% of the population right now, if they were to dry fast right now, I would say they would probably and like never eat again, they would actually survive. Like the other 80%, they would probably they might not survive. But like right now, if like 80%, if all food was just like wiped off of the third dimension for some reason,
mm,
and everybody had to dry fast, about probably like 10 to 20% would actually survive, and we would regrow the population. And so from that sense of beings like us that already are really trying to to that cleanliness of God,
mm,
we already know, like, we don't need it. All things are mainly entertainment, and it's mainly a way of communication with ourselves through the other or those outer ripples of our perception of life, to
mm,
communicate with all or understand and understand and have
mm,
compassion and patience for all aspects of the third dimension. And that's the through that virtue we get the most power. So it's just like we can still get power from in foods or densities of
mm,
prana,
mm,
and we can still get power from it because it really is all about communication and a deeper understanding of it.
mhm,
So, going back to like the original question about money, prosperity, and abundance. I mean, we look at the money symbol, and it's the caduceus staff.
mm,
And so, if we allow that to really sink into our subconscious mind that the Kusha staff, the Kundalini is the money. I mean, there's a way of distilling our thought processes of money
Hmm.
deeper and deeper and deeper to a sense of like, yeah, if we were ever able, if we were ever wanting, let's say, $1 billion, would that go to engaging in more Kundalini energy or not? And actually, like, would we use that energy for more Kundalini energy or not? And if not, then maybe we still don't even know the power of all aspects of money in general.
Okay. Okay. Good point. Good point. So, I love the way you describe, like, there's no one else that I've heard describe certain things in the way that you do when you're explaining things. It's like someone could say a person or another being, but you said ripples of our outer perception. And it was like beautiful. It was like, what? Like these are just ripples of our outer perception, like ripples of our own consciousness. And it just brings it back to one. Like how Jesse, well, one of my friends, he'll try to tell me there's only one of us here. Like there's no separation. So I love the way that you just describe and you use these words to really just bring in a wholeness aspect, a holistic, like a well-rounded, down-to-earth aspect of everyone and how everything is all connected,
Yeah.
you know? And when you're speaking of the subconscious mind, and also how I've seen you put the Solarian mind
Hmm.
with neuroplasticity, this is a topic that, I mean, has boggled people for so many years. I mean, just throughout time, people are boggled by the mind. But it really sounds like you've gained just so much mastery when it comes to the confidence that you have in yourself to traverse the earth without worrying about needing a job or needing shelter or needing this, security or safety or just,
Hmm.
what other people might think that they need. So when could you say that you gained that confidence and awareness within you that you were always protected and always taken care of? Because I mean, I can imagine that when you said you were in the hood, growing up in the neighborhood, that you might not have had this consciousness today.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, I just want to take an intervention real quick and like appreciate the fact that like really I don't even get to experience a lot of this inner mastery that's going on unless somebody asks me questions in
Oh,
actuality. Like
okay.
I'm constantly kind of in like the Wu-Ji sense of like just the unified sense of like not even thinking about a lot of these things. A lot
Mhm.
of things come up and I'm like I get inspired by, but I don't actually ever get to a chance to like see how I can articulate them. And so it's like it's one of these things that I'm baffled by as well. Like I'm like, wow, like I'm gonna look back at this and be like, well, I said that, or whatever, right? Like, it literally only comes when people ask the questions in my like inner library.
Mhm.
And so like because I'm usually only studying like one aspect of my library at a time to like refine that one aspect. And so I
Mhm.
don't ever get to like put it all together until I'm actually like in that inspiration where I'm like, okay, let me make a course or let me like design this. But then whenever I'm like just talking with one person that has a good question in an open space for me to design right in front of them, I'm like, all right, let's like kind of channel this system together. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
so I
Of
appreciate that. I
course.
just love that when my ajna is like utilized. You know what I mean?
Of
Uh,
course.
so like to the question. I'll say that I did grow up on anime.
Mm.
I didn't have a father figure, and my mother was out a lot of the time. So, like, anime was almost like my parent.
Okay.
And so, watching like Goku and stuff like that, as in his child state,
Mm.
in the jungle, always had this like really, this Tarzanian archetype within inside of me,
Mm.
this Tarzan archetype within inside of me to like know that I could always go to the jungle, have a monkey tail, and be super strong and develop
Mhm.
powers. That's like in my subconscious for sure. Just between 0 and 7, that
Mhm.
was in my program, and
Okay.
so there was always that. But it really wasn't until like I started studying like I started studying certain philosophers like Terence McKenna and such that like were talking about nature
Mm,
deeper, that started telling me like you just got to go into nature and study nature as much as possible
mm,
and watch how nature has its system of thrivance for
mm,
you. And so I I was in Austin, Texas, going more into like my story of like more of a blossom and awakening to the structured self that I have now. I was in Austin, Texas, and I was working like I had like a couple of jobs. I was a model, I was an actor, I was a salesman, I was a creative director, and so I had a couple of different jobs, and I was moving drugs around too. And so I had a couple of different jobs that there was this one moment of awakening, and it was over some weeks and months, but I call it a one moment of
okay.
awakening that kind of just didn't allow me to do anything ever again
Mm,
of that nature for the same purposes that I was doing it for, which was, you know, a certain sense out of vanity, out of lust, out of greed and pride and such,
mm,
that like kind of humbled me to a sense of like, bro, you're not even doing these things for gaining those powers of like divine intelligence. You're doing these things for personality benefits and making your personality feel better.
wow.
And so like I quit my job. I tried to go back like 3 or 4 times to my sales job. It was just a contractor job, so I can do that. And I was like the main guy making a lot of money with it, and so they wanted me back. So I tried like 4 times to go back to it, and I couldn't because it was like I felt like I was wasting time not developing myself and being subtle and content just for money and such. And so like that led me to like a year of meditation, a year of studying like a lot of the scientists on earth that were talking about nature and such.
Mm-hmm,
Even like Bruce Lipton and epigenetics, and talking about how like your environment molds your DNA and such, and how like when you're in nature, your DNA is being molded towards a certain level of peace that allows certain aspects of your brain to turn on, and you'd actually like kind of let life be a life study.
mm-hmm,
And so like certain things like that led me to say, hey, I need to go out into nature. So I just randomly started like living in my tent at certain places where I was at in Texas, uh, and trying to stay there for as long as I can, bring some food or whatever, but just trying to like live epigenetics, let epigenetics be my main source of study in life. And so, just like living on lakes and such, and
mm-hmm,
then very beautiful places. But then I was like, all right, I got to go to the tropics to get even more sun and more nature and such. And so, yeah, like without money, without a passport, I even snuck into Mexico and snuck into Belize to live out there for a year,
wow.
and encounters with all these cops and things of that nature. But like when the cops were speaking to me in Spanish about do you have your passport? Where are you going? etc. I would be like, I don't understand what you're saying. And granted, I was with some tribe members as well, and we'd be like, we don't understand what you're saying. We are God. You are God. That's all that matters. And we would like be proclaiming this like genetic inheritance of this realm uh, to these officers, and it was like our it was like we was Jedi mind tricking these cops away from us,
Yeah, they had
and or you're
they
like,
had to leave. They had to keep moving.
yeah, and this was like 40 times within like a 6 month period. uh it was amazing to see, and only a couple times we weren't in our own Jedi senses
Hmm.
to ever finesse it the best, so we actually did have to like come up with some money and such. But uh yeah, we was like going straight for the nature. Like, yo, we're trying to get into the jungle, live with the monkeys, live under the trees, and like really just trust, because like ever since I quit my job, it was like a certain level of like, at this point, I'm not gonna be able to pay my car note.
Hmm.
I can't pay my rent.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Where am I gonna stay at? What am I gonna
Right.
do? This is not like me, because I've always been a very sufficient type of guy. But now I have to like, it was a trust in the mother at that
Hmm.
time, that I was like, there's a certain sense of like I know my mother, what the level of where my mother is at in her life isn't going to be enough for me. It's enough for her, which is enough for me, but for where my potential is sprouting to on a mathematical vortex level, it's not enough for me. I have to trust the divine mother,
Right.
the earthly mother, the heavenly mother, and such. And so I had to, I just had to like explore in a sense of like trying to figure this out on a level. And then what that came with was lots of time to
Mm.
contemplate about communication, because really like when you can communicate certain things, being transparent on a certain level, people want to help you
Yeah.
out, like if you ever do need help. And a lot of times, like obviously like we're looking for more sufficient inner realities anyway, so you don't need help. And then there's like a sense of like people are like, damn, I can't help this guy. Like he already has it all. I'm gonna figure out a way to help him, or I'm gonna figure out a way to help this tribe or whatever that are out moving in this mechanics. And that's kind of like the yin and the yang. Like they're always looking like the one that's very self-sufficient will always have a lot of beings always trying to help them.
Right.
And, that's the way that it works. And the ones that's not self-sufficient will always feel like there's a scarcity of beings trying to help them. And so it's
Mm.
just like one of those things is like, that's the irony and the paradox of life that we're here to contemplate on and actually like let it unify us more, is that like the less that's in your stomach, the more that people are trying to put in your stomach. It's like one of those things.
Yeah, for sure. Man, Rave, like, thank you for this breakdown. Like, thank you for illustrating your origin story. Like every villain, every hero, every super, people with superpowers, in all the DC comics and the Marvel comics, they all have an origin
Right.
story, you know? And I relate to you on so many levels because I grew up on, anime as well. The same Dragon Ball Z, Cowboy Bebop,
Yeah.
Samurai Champloo,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
all sorts of different animes that,
Uh-huh.
Naruto, like Yu Yu Hakusho,
Yeah. Yeah.
so many animes that I still have in the matrix, in the makeup of my mind. And it definitely contributed to a lot of that neuroplasticity of what can't I do? I can do anything,
Hmm.
like we have it all within us, and we can go Super Saiyan whenever we want to. We can go Kaioken whenever we want to. We can
Right.
ascend whenever we want to. So you were definitely living like Ellie Tom. He talks about, being in his tent by the lake and being in an RV or just being out in nature and just moving away from society.
Hmm.
And I'd love to hear more about that awakening that you said something happened that you said you could never go back. If you could talk about what that awakening was like for you, that you tried to go back to your sales job, but it just wasn't possible anymore. What was
Hmm.
that like?
For me, it was a sense of like turning that Kaioken nature that we have into the corporate world. And so I felt like I was able to do that. And like really just like all of my peers that I was in high school with, they're still in college, figuring out life under their parents' roof a lot of the times. And I was 20 years old, making 5,000 a month at minimum, and only working like 12 hours a week. I was modeling. I was around celebrities a lot, um, at certain like fashion weeks and such. Um, and this like it sprouted all really fast for me,
Mm,
and it wasn't very stressful for me. Like it had certain levels of stress, but that wasn't like the stress that was like hard at all. But the
mm,
stress that was hard was when I had a friend that when I had certain friends that were starting to go through depression, and I didn't know what to tell. Well, I didn't know what to tell them, because I was like, I got all these things I got to worry about. I can't focus on your depression and such. And so, but I was like so super empathic
mm,
that it was affecting me to a certain degree, and I was seeing it affect me. And then I had like one of my first relationships too. Actually, I would say like that was a big part. Like taking care of a beautiful being at the time, uh, that like didn't have all this experience that I was having, uh, and seeing her go through what she was going through, and seeing it affect me. It was just certain levels of humbleness that I was like, man, I don't know how to help y'all for real. Like I can feel like I can be compassionate. I can tell jokes. I can do all these things, but this is a certain deeper level of therapy that I am not able to provide, and all these like things that I'm obtaining in the worldly sense
Hmm.
don't really hit home if I can't help the people around me that
Okay.
are really going through it. And so like it was like for like almost a year, I was like had like four people in my condo in Austin,
Hmm.
like living rent free and trying to like go out and make money, but they were like they were just too much influenced by the culture at the time, or the death, I would say, because death and culture, is hard to put those two words together. uh, they were too much influenced by that reality of like drugs and partying and obsessions with things that like they could never get out of their slumps and such. And so like I would say that led me to be empathic enough to go vegan.
Okay.
Randomly, I was bodybuilding at the time. I was a model in
Hmm.
bodybuilding. Then randomly, like I don't know. It was, oh yeah, I did want to talk about this. I
Hmm.
had because it's something very simple, but it's such a beautiful thing because like I had a girlfriend or a
Hmm.
fling for like 6 months at the end of my high school,
Hmm.
and she was a vegan, and this was the first vegan I ever met,
Hmm.
and so like I was like way away from that at the time, and I was like still in contact with her 2 years later. And then as I'm like bodybuilding and such, I think a part of me was just like, because she was a bodybuilder too, a part of me was like, dang, but she's really doing this all off, not eating
Right.
meat. This is like kind of insane. And then I was like, just like thinking,
Hmm.
like we've exchanged our fluids, so we've exchanged our DNA, and I think she planted that vegan seed in me to like be easy later down the line when I have the time and the space and the research ability
Hmm.
on the inside of my reality to figure that out. And so I did, and there's a part of me that like wanted to show her like I can be a vegan and bodybuild still. And
Hmm.
so that reality happened. But obviously uh, the first time anyone goes vegan, they're definitely gonna experience becoming more
Yeah.
light in heart and mind and such. And so that happened, and that seeing the reactions of all of my peers being mainly athletes,
Hmm.
and then mainly people that were either religious or whatever else at the time. All these beings look at me like I'm some random new being because I don't eat meat or cheese anymore and such, and like kind of crucifying me in their mental sphere, like,
Hmm.
because it's like one of those things, like, if I'm not eating meat, it's almost like I'm saying, like, ew, your stuff is nasty nowadays when I never really was. But it's like that projection, it gets bounced back at me and whatnot. And so I went through that, and it allowed me to just like tap into those energy realms a little bit more.
Okay.
And then boom, it was one week that people were going through stuff, and I was like, you know what? I'm about to take a day to watch some documentaries on Netflix. I'm gonna watch as much documentaries on Netflix this weekend as I
Hmm.
can, and so I try to watch as much documentaries on conspiracy theories on Netflix as I can, and it helped me so much that I took a week off of work and continued to watch as much documentaries on Netflix and online as I could.
Okay.
And it humbled me so much that I just didn't know much. I like didn't know anything about life. I was like, why don't I understand spirituality? Why don't I understand
Hmm.
money and banks and all these different esoteric terms, like why hasn't this been like at least slowly fed to me in any type of way
Hmm.
where I can actually like kind of grasp all this? And the fact that I was like seeing it and didn't understand what it was, just like it was a master to me. It was like, young student, you come in here with so much pride. You think you're doing so well,
Hmm.
but just sit down. And I have to like sit down,
Yeah.
and you know, pretty much that was the experience that never allowed me to talk to anyone ever again without thinking about these things.
Wow.
And so I couldn't go to the door to door sales job anymore and have these short conversations without my soul almost like thumping in pain
Yeah.
because I'm talking to this being about something that's so irrelevant to me
Hmm.
day in and day out. And so, yeah, it pretty much just gave my sense of self value and self worth a G check, a reality check
Yeah.
that never allowed me to like say, like I know a lot, and I'm here and I'm at your face and I'm saying I know a lot in your face. You know, that led to this next decade of me saying I know nothing so much, and that like I'm here to learn from you. Like you're my master. Like I see everybody as the guru and the master to me nowadays, whether I have to say it or not to people. I try to emulate the humility
Hmm.
since yeah, there is no self and other, and technically the whole realm is the master.
Man, this is so deep. You know, this is going so deep. I feel like we're just going down the rabbit hole of reality, you know, with this conversation. Like, thank you for that testimony, brother, of what really shook and just took your reality. Like, you know, I always have tremendous respect for people who are able to have their reality shattered and is in tatters and able to come back from that and still be able to live and just be able to live on even though
Yeah.
their whole reality is shattered, like completely just broken out of something, you know, whether somebody comes from, you know, doing a super dose of psychedelics, you know, psilocybin, or if somebody comes from an experience of ayahuasca, or somebody does something that just completely gives them that ego death. Like you said,
Hmm.
you were humbled, you had so much humility come in, and you asked yourself the question, like, what do I really know? You know,
Yeah.
what have I ever known?
Hmm.
And then you just became the lifelong student. I think
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, that was it. That was it. It just put me in the student path. Like there was no more trying to be anything besides a student at that point, because it like really it activated that DNA, that animation DNA inside of me. Like when we're watching like Dragon Ball Z and such, and we're watching beings from other dimensions flying on other hovercraft and such like that, and having that level of intelligence, it activated that DNA of like you remember like this is a possibility,
Hmm.
and the fact that there is so much UFO phenomenon around here that we're talking about in these conspiracy theories, and this different history of humanity that we're talking about, and the fact that you already have that in your DNA as a child, you've watched that and you've resonated with that, and you've resonated with like different DNA structures creating like aquatic beings or mammalian beings or reptilian beings and such. You've watched that in different cartoons and DNA and animes and such.
Right.
Like like are you gonna piece the puzzle together now? Like it's just kind of one of those things, and obviously it's not gonna be an easy feat,
Hmm.
so might as well like drop the identities of whatever you want to be at, you know, and just become a student and learn mastery. Like Robert Greene was actually the first self-study book that I've ever um, read on my own personal
Which
time
one?
outside of high school. Mastery.
Okay, Mastery, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
by Robert Greene. Awesome.
Hmm.
Awesome.
And so the fact that it talks about the apprentice phase,
Hmm.
and how that's like a 10 to 15 year cycle and such, like that humbled me enough. That planted a seed of humility enough, like because we always want mastery, but a lot of the mastery literally comes from that apprentice
Yeah.
phase and just being apprentice towards life. So that kind of always stuck in my head as I was coming into like dropping certain things and just being like, okay, I'm not going to be a guy that owns a house or owns a car. I'm not going to be a guy that owns the land. I'm not going to be a guy that, you know, owns these things and has this identity. But what's going to be in replace of that in that cup is going to be fulfillment of attuning to those levels of mastery that need to be stitched in for the actual growth of the actual flower to bloom.
Right, right. Beautiful, beautiful. You know, I definitely resonate as well with Robert Greene. Like, he's one of my favorite authors. I have like a few books of his right here. You know, the daily laws, like the laws of human nature, the
Uh,
art of seduction, you know, the 48, the, you know, even like in mastery, the 33 strategies of war. Like,
mhm.
Robert is definitely one of my high authors like on my list that I can just read and reread over and over again, and I'll get something new each time. And when you're talking about the activation of DNA, if someone's listening to you, Rave, and they're like wondering to themselves, what were those documentaries that you watched that, made you stop, working and, step away from the system? If you had one documentary that you could give to somebody, maybe what you were watching on Netflix that would really activate somebody's DNA, what would that documentary be?
I mean, at the time for me, it was, I would say Zeitgeist,
Zeitgeist.
because yeah,
Okay.
because I didn't know anything about religion, even though like my grandparents were religious, and my mom and my family was religious. Most of my homeboys were religious and such, and so I didn't know anything about religion, like the origins of religion, but like the one, two, and three Zeitgeist, I think it is. Um, they allowed me to make sense of the sun and Jesus and all the religions that have the sun as their, or the sun figure, the Solarian culture that allowed religions to slowly spread throughout the earth, where they pretty much were sun worshippers, they were sun cultivators and such, and that that alone brought a certain level of like, okay, this is some, for lack of better terms, fuckery. This is some fuckery. This is some trigonometry right here. Some trigonology right here that's going on. What is this? What? And then the money system. Obviously, people are in a lot of scarcity and fear. And in that documentary, it talks about um, money and how it's just printed out of thin air, and that people are bonds on the stock exchange and the bond exchange market, and that people are really billionaires, and that they have signed over their knowledge of being billionaires with their signature in so many different ways and such. And so all of that in one big shebang, as a person that didn't know anything about money, didn't I mean I was making money, but I didn't know investments or nothing like that. I didn't know how to have emotional maturity with money. I definitely didn't know how to save money and such. Um, Pretty much like, and hearing my mom say so many times that she's poor growing up, like constantly saying how poor she is,
Yeah.
and like me inherently knowing it's from a lack of health and a lack of study, just because I was like, you can't just be saying that. Like even as a kid, I was like, that's a cop out. Like, don't let money make you feel poor. Like, you can be poor, but don't let money make you feel poor. But she
Right.
was allowing it to make her feel poor and such. And so, like when I seen that, it, so I have this in my personality test chart and such. I'm a protagonist, so it's this hero like personality, savior complex already, and then I'm a quad Pisces in astrology, so I already have this like Jesus kind of energy already. And so when I was learning all these things, yeah, it activated that anime inside of me to like, because in anime it's always like this hero. There's always at least one hero complex in the whole thing, and so it activated that archetype inside of me a little bit deeper to say, all right, you got to figure this stuff out for everybody else too, because like people don't know this stuff, and the fact that you've been blessed with it to have an opportunity to watch it and actually like kind of sit there and like take a little notes on it, like most people don't have time for that. They don't have the mind for that, the ability to make space for that. And so it was like Zeitgeist was a nice, it wasn't even an onboarding, honestly, but it was the introduction to onboarding. It was an introduction to onboarding. And I think the studies of, like, I didn't get a really good onboarding, but I did try to study as much masters as possible that gave me my onboarding. But Zeitgeist was the one that I think it's one, two, and three, or just one and two, that allowed me to just humble myself and say, yeah, I don't, yeah, don't really know much.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what they're talking about.
Right, right. Man, that's, on all levels, like when you have an awakening like that and you have something that can just shake you up and wake you up, And I love that you've accepted this mission. It feels really holy. It's like a divine mission to learn as much as you can to share with others. Like you care to share, and you dare to put your mind in a place of just like complete beginner's mind, that zen mind, beginner's mind level of all the time, like a child, like just absorbing like a sponge, learning whatever you can. but you don't just hoard it. You don't just hold it. You actually give it to whoever is there to receive it and whoever is there to perceive it, and, you know, make the choice to change their reality on their own, because, you know, it's up to the individual. So I love that you've accepted that, you know, accepted that task, because it feels monumental, like with everyone that you said as well, that is constantly still living and operating in that conditioning. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, that's part of the integration process for me is whenever you're learning something new, it goes inside of you and then it overfills and then it tries to hit the other end of the
Right.
ocean. And if it doesn't hit the other end of the ocean with coherency, then there's still more integration to happen.
Right.
And so if you can't break it down to that beginner's mind for, people for wherever they're at, then there's still much more learning that's happening. And so I'm like, well, just keep the learning coming. You know what I mean? I'm just going to keep on
Yeah.
experimenting with how I can talk to as many people as possible. And we are coming into, in astrology, we're coming to the age of Aquarius, which is the age of magnetism, electricity, communication, etc. of that nature. Like it's a lot of articulation things that are making coherency easier. And so if we can't learn coherency with the five senses and the other, then it's always going to be a challenge for us. So if we're going to like nip the challenge in the butt and shoot straight for the mastery of it, then we have to let it um, encompass us as much as possible. Let there be a trust of it, and then see how that trust expresses itself
Absolutely.
in the hologram.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, right before we go, brother, you know, I remember when you were talking in the beginning of this conversation about, you know, Hawaii being a home base of operations for people in the pranic vibration, you know, for people into pranic living, you know, on that pranic path. Would you just kind of, you know, let people know, like, what does it mean to you? Like the pranic journey itself, what is pranic living like? How do you feel when you hear that? Like, what does it mean to you?
For me, when someone says chronic journey or utilizing chi and
Mhm.
such, um, for me, it's just like, okay, you tapping into technology because you're tapping into atoms and cells and what they're actually made of. You're tapping into frequency, energy, and vibration more than uh, tangibility, because pretty much like science has shown that like everything's vibrating and nothing's actually solid. And so, number one, you're starting off with getting that spell off of everything. That's like the biggest spell of like solidity to anything. Uh, and stuff being stagnant, And so whenever we're talking about prana, we're talking about this vast
Mhm.
ocean of fluidity, of movement, of magnetism, and that is an ever journeying conceptualization of it. Because if there's infinite energy, that means there's infinite expressions of energy, which means there's infinite dimensions,
Right.
infinite densities and realities. That energy is constantly spreading itself out into to nourish all of those things.
Mhm.
And so, like, when I'm talking about allowing people to understand prana on an easy level, I'm usually talking about how the breath is a great source of learning prana, because you get to move energy, or you have to move energy. You can be still with your body, but you still have to breathe. And
Mhm.
so, there's always going to be some sense of moving energy with that inhale and that
Right.
exhale. And the deeper that you inhale, the deeper that you inhale and the deeper that you exhale, the more that you can actually feel prana with your five senses in your nervous system.
Mhm.
And so that's like the baseline of it for me, is where like, we can feel this right now. Like I can allow you to feel a higher octave of crystallization in your bloodstream right now. Like we can go into this applicable form
Mhm.
right here, right now. You can feel prana in 30 minutes at the most. And so that's like that's the blessing that has really got me this far. As I started with the Wim Hof like a decade ago, and the DMT breathing and such a decade ago. And so that got me into like understanding kundalini and melanin and such like that, to the point where I'm like, wow, like it can always be shown to somebody if they're willing and open to learn about it in 10 minutes,
Absolutely.
3 minutes even, you know what I mean? Even one breath, it can be like a bong like breath that just kind of blasts somebody's spine open a little bit. And so like that that consciousness is the energy.
Hmm.
And so when we're talking about prana, we're talking about a pranic consciousness more than anything else, because it takes that consciousness to see that energy deeper. And to see more prana, you need more of that pranic consciousness. And that's pretty much the true identity of reality, is all that etheric pranic chi based reality. And so as we're dropping identity, we're coming more into a bigger identity at all times. It's always just a vaster, more precise,
Yeah.
more beautiful array and spectrum of a kaleidoscopic energy.
Yeah. Yeah, ever expanding, ever expanding. I love that there's no end, there's no end to it. It just constantly goes out. I remember like you're just bringing me memories right now. When I was at a seminar years ago, Rave, and I remember there was this yogi. He was like an Indian yogi. They brought him from overseas. He flew in and he just sat with us. Like later on we danced with this guy. Like we danced for, I think it was like, it felt like a whole hour. We just danced. Like we were twirling around, just this whole room we were just dancing. But before he gave us this talk. He was like a real, serious guy, really contemplative, really meditative, really no nonsense guy.
Mm,
He barely smiled at all until we started dancing. Then he was smiling, right?
mm,
But when he was just talking to us, he said something that stuck with me. He said, this universe that we're in, like this world that we're in, like is moving. Everything is moving, everything's expanding, everything's growing, but it's like, but where is it going? And he was like, this Milky Way or this galaxy or this universe, like it's constantly going somewhere, like it's expanding somewhere. Where?
mhm.
He said it to the audience, like, where? And no one had the answer. No one had the answer to that question. like where? Like, and so it was like it planted, just like that documentary,
Mm,
planted that seed in your mind. It made me like wonder, like, wait, I'm worried about my taxes, and
yeah.
we're just, this universe is expanding and we don't even know where it's going, and I'm over here worried about bills. What am I worried about?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. It's
what
like all these subtle worries like pack on a certain level of density to you, and then you're
yeah,
just walking with those bags on your back at all time.
yeah,
and,
yeah,
and and somebody has to come through, or something has to come through and say, "Yo, let me take these off of you real quick,"
yeah,
and and just sit with those off of you. It looks like you've had those on you for a long time, a couple of years at least. Let me take these off of you.
yeah. Let me
And
see.
how does that
Let
feel?
me see. You got a few more. You got a
Oh,
few more. Let me.
oh, you're hiding some pockets too. Wow. Yeah. Wow. And yeah, it
Oh
takes
my
it
God.
takes something in reality usually to just like allow you to breathe deeper, because it's hard to breathe whenever you're got all that weight on you. And
Absolutely.
you at least can't breathe with your proper alignment and such when you got all that weight on you and such. So it's just like it just takes at least those moments of like, here's your moment to just tap into the breath. And if somebody takes that weight off of you, and you get like a chance to actually go deep into the breath and such at the same moment, or and dancing and such. Whew, like at that time I was really a athlete, so I was still like very fit and everything else. So I was always still going to the gym and such, so I was able to take I don't know if I think I took it all off, because I was like, all right, I'm not gonna worry about this anymore. Like it was a subtle thing that I was like, I'm not gonna worry about this anymore. But I was still figuring it out. But when I went to the gym and such, and was like thinking about, okay, I'm about to like embrace this journey, let me just like go hard in the gym. That
Mhm.
was my time where I was like doing my subtle breath work, so that I can like feel the energy that it would take for me to like, ooh, what about like taking a hammock to Costa
Right.
Rica? Like, what would that be like? Do I
Right.
have enough energy for that and such? And so, like, it takes those moments of taking that stuff off, and then hopefully you have some type of healthy routine inside of you that you can actually just tap into what that body feels like
Yeah.
when those packs are off.
Yeah. Yeah. So this has been, this has been tremendous. Like, thank you for just these sharings. Like, thank you for the clarity that you bring to these concepts and just breaking people out of their current day consciousness. And this is so important. This is so nourishing. And it's really necessary, for us to just hear something new, for us to think something new, to get somewhere new, to go somewhere new. We have to think somewhere new. So, man, I just want to thank you, from the top of my heart. Thank you for your authenticity. Thank you for your originality. Like, there's no one like you, brother. It's very unique, but it's like you're just connecting everything together. You're connecting people together in so many explorative ways. And if this is somebody's first time seeing you, where would you say they should go to receive your offerings, your services, like anything that you want to offer for somebody? Where should they go to tune in with that?
Mhm. Well, I do have a YouTube. There's a good amount of just like basic Solarian knowledge and things that like can open your mind and introduce you to a lot of different things, whether it's like human design, gene keys, Wusabat, which is the study of the nine ethers, Sirius star elements and such, galactic science, eniology, um, a lot of different things, whether it's that can come along with applicable natures, which is like Raha Yoga and Naidan and such like that, uh, Tantra and such like that. That's all on YouTube, but it's just introductory things. I haven't really created my onboarding platform yet due
Okay.
to the fact that I'm really just so young still. And I keep on coming closer to my Saturn's return and remembering how young I am and knowing that like this is with great power comes great responsibility. So take your time
Yeah.
with creating that onboarding platform that can actually introduce people to having all these things and having the breath works that can get them multidimensional and such
Yeah.
that can all be a part of this great awakening for people because you didn't have that when you're a warrior. You didn't have that so much when you were growing up, but you are a warrior, but that's not the land of where everybody else is at. Like the warrior protects people, protects the civilians. And so like uh me feeling like a warrior in some sense of like going through things just a little ruggedly in my time to like find the beauty and the peace.
Hmm.
I would love to see people just have a really I wouldn't say futuristic, but I would just say multidimensional onboarding platform so that they can enter into their own
Hmm.
mothership and truly embrace their technology. So the YouTube is an introduction. When I get my other Instagram page back up, they suspended it randomly for no reason, but maybe I'll get it back up.
Yeah,
This is like the eighth time they did that.
man.
Yeah. So if I get that back up, there's a lot of information on there.
Hmm.
I do consultations, and
Awesome.
which my consultations are like a little bit of introduction, a little bit of onboarding. So I'm trying to get you on where I feel like you can have the most powerful
Mhm.
essence. Like I can just increase your essence where you're at right now and try to like get all those spells off. Like we was talking about getting those baggages off
Right.
that are just in those
Right.
spells. I do that on the onboarding. And then if people want to get an individual onboarding process, because I'm trying to make a universal one right now, but if
Hmm.
they want an individual one, I can always give people a whole onboarding process, which will take a couple hours of me going through the depths of all the genetics
Hmm.
spectrums and everything that I can map out for a person's communication styles in that moment. And yeah, I mean, besides that, like in person,
Yeah.
I do massage, all types of different massages
Mhm.
for people and different ceremonies and lead breath work and lead meditations and such like that. And that's mainly in Hawaii and such. So
Awesome.
if you would ever catch me in Hawaii, you know what I mean? Like I'm out there. I'm really with the community out there,
Awesome.
and doing my zheng zhuang and my meditations in front of people. Like even right now, this whole time I've been in horse stance. This
Oh,
whole
nice.
yeah, this whole time I've been in horse stance. So if you ever want to catch me in Hawaii, I'm usually out there, and when I'm going to the beaches, I'm doing my breath work in front of people, doing my vacuums and massaging my stomach and doing my abdominal massage. Like little things like that
Yeah.
is very important for me. But if you want to find me right now, right here from the internet, just go ahead and DM me, and we'll see what work we can get done.
Awesome.
Just because I am not available to the degree of, if people want, if people are yearning for anything, they'll find it.
Right.
And if I'm the conduit of what they're looking for, I have to be the conduit of what they're looking for.
Right. So just let people know, what is the YouTube channel like? What is the name that they should go to find it?
Baba Rave Solarian.
Baba Rave Solarian. That's what it.
Yeah.
Okay, Baba Rave Solarian on YouTube.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Well, y'all definitely follow the brother. You know, he's doing amazing things here, and just can't wait to see where you go when you continue. You know, just oh man, just continue, brother. Just continue.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
stop. You've inspired me today. You've inspired me. I'm about to read a book, man. I'm about to just continue to fuel my mind and see what I find. So thank you,
Same.
brother.
Same, brother. It's mutually respected, mutually appreciated. I was also thinking we should do this like 8 more times just to complete the 9 cycle cipher. I was like I'm in this mode right now where I'm like, I know I like 10 minutes to like 24 hours. I'll be thinking about so many things that I wanted to say or wish I could have said in moments where people are open and open to the expansion, but just takes time. So let's go ahead and see if we can get 9 of these in, sometime in life, or 8 more of these in sometime in life.
Awesome. Awesome. All right,
Awesome,
brother.
buddy.
Take care.
Enjoy
Enjoy the
yourself.
rest of your
Till next
day.
now. Yeah, praises and cheers, everybody. Enjoy yourselves.
Take care.